What's going on, everybody? A couple people wanted me to talk about the moon, the red moon, and I'm going to put this in line on a track with a couple other stories of all of creation and what the moon actually is, what it seems to be, what it appears to be, and I'm going to use a couple reference sources of other people's work that I really enjoy. And let's start with this idea that when you came to this planet, when you came to this earth, when you came through the portal, the womb, you were your memory of the story that you wrote for yourself was eliminated, and you walked along a path, and you basically followed in line with the story. You created a story for yourself, and then somewhere along that line, somewhere in your path, at times, you became aware of the storyline and you altered it. You became the editor of your story. You know, most people, they'll edit the story as they're going along but have no idea they're doing it. Little dips over here into this, and a little bit of that, and there's like here's a little adventure, and it kind of just jumped off the original storyline. But once you become very aware that the storyline was, you become the editor, you wrote the story, and now you get to edit it in any way you want. The power and control that you have to understand all of creation. And yes, this has to do with the moon and what it is. And it even gets into the way people believe in science or religion or whatever it might be. Especially this concept of, we're actually evolving, and we came out of an explosion and nothing happened and we've evolved, but then they go ahead and they tell you, and I don't know who they are, but it seems to be quite a large group of maybe not a large group of people, group of unaware people that is fitting inside of a storyline. They say something like, we're evolving, but then in the next breath they go and say, well, actually everything is gene encoded, and you're either a reference to the genes that are unlocked from your mother or your father, and that's all you can be. Well, what happened to evolution? I thought that there was an evolution occurring. I thought our species, or whatever we are, evolved from something. But then they say, no. Actually, that's wrong. We didn't evolve. You're actually you're bits and pieces of information, and you can only be part of the DNA coding and sequencing that is in your DNA. But hold on, I thought you said we evolved. Well, yeah, we did, but no. See, you can't have both. You can't have both. It just, that's the truth of it. There's no way getting around and outside of that. And these are the same people that go, no, the material world rules all. Yet they're using their mind and their consciousness to come up with these equations. But they say consciousness has no bearing on anything whatsoever. That the metaphysician, that the mind, the people that say, well, no, we come out of the mind, we come out of the larger soul, and we talk about consciousness and all these things. They say, no, that doesn't exist. Well, then who is it that's saying that doesn't exist? How can one possibly believe or buy into or live into that system from somebody saying, oh, no, that doesn't exist? Yet they're using their mind to come up with that conclusion. Curious, right? So how is it the baby was born? How is it that the seed becomes the tree? How do those things happen? We don't know. The whole world exploded and somehow made a tiny little seed that became an oak tree. That's an impossibility to even conceive of, that an explosion made an oak tree. You can't. That's so far beyond even a million monkeys for a million years on a million typewriters trying to type out Shakespeare. Like that's another, like, you can't even conceive of how silly and impossible that is. So this is to say how strong and how brilliant the mind is. I'm not saying that the mind can figure out how anything's done. A lot of people go through trying to create by saying, okay, well, if we figure out and diagnose this and say, and they want to control everything, we can figure out how this was built, and we can do it. We can do it too by figuring out how this was built. How is it that person does that? How is it that is accomplished? Well, let's figure it out. Let's pull it apart. Let's go here. Let's chop it up, and this goes like this, and this goes like this, and this is how this was made. Yet they can't figure out how their body was made. They can't it's an illusion. It's a delusion to believe. Because really, when people create, it's just like a seed. You don't know how, like a gardener doesn't grow anything. A gardener tends to the crop or leaves it alone. And the highest form of gardener puts a seed and walks away. And there it is. And then there it is. It's grown into whatever it should be. And that's how the mind works, to create everything. There's nothing you need to tend to. You don't need to do anything about it. That's how powerful the mind is. That's how infinitely powerful and creative the mind is. People are like, oh no, your mind is so powerful. Like, yeah, you can go figure out how to do this. No, that's not what's being said ever. It's not really what's going on. That's not how it happens. How is it so? How many people that don't have any skills whatsoever still somehow find a way of existing in the world? And then there's people that like, how did that person, become a millionaire? How did that person become that thing? When they have no clue, they're clueless. But they just had an idea, and that idea became whatever it was that they wanted. There was nothing they needed to do per se. There was no physical action. There was no write it out. There was none of that, because the mind created it. And that's how powerful the mind is. There's nothing you need to figure out. It was already done for you. The fact that you're here and you have this body, you don't even need to think about how your lungs work or how your heart beats. You don't even think about how to grow your fingernails. You don't have to think about your hair growing. You don't have to think about how it is your eyes see. How do I see? How does my brain work? Who knows? I can't know those things. I don't choose to want to know those things. What is it worth? Even if I could figure out how it did work, what's it going to do? Is it going to improve how well I can do those things? The only thing that matters is, do you get what you want? Is the world providing you and everyone else with an abundance, with clarity, with vision, with whatever it is? Now, what does all of that have to do with what the moon is? There's a lot of people that have suggested the moon didn't exist. You can look into very ancient tribes that say it was actually parked into the sky. We could look into what what Star Wars might say as the Death Star, or we can look into even some people that suggest even as early as the 1400s there was no moon in the sky, and that the sun was just doing what it was doing, and it was creating giant trees in abundance. And then when we look at the moon and what it is, and people say, no, it's a projection. And a projection of what? Why is it we can see through the moon? Why is it we can see stars on the other side? Why is it that they tell us something like, oh, the sun illuminates the moon? Which, there's a trick here. I'll tell you about that in a second. The sun illuminates the moon, but yet we've seen the sun and the moon in the sky at the exact same time. Everyone has. And yet the moon was half full and the sun was full, but you could see behind the moon into the blue sky. How can that even possibly be? It couldn't possibly be if the moon existed as anything other than a projection or a figment of the collective consciousness and imagination of everyone. I mean, there it is. There's the moon that's going to eat up all the things that the sun grows. We need to have a yin and yang. Well, maybe not. Maybe that was the first division in untruth, if there was one. I've always considered these things of like the air, fire, earth, and water, and no, there's not 4 elements, it's 3, and maybe the yin and yang is all wrong. And what is it about this? Why is the moon red? What is that suggesting? What is it about the mass population of the consciousness? This, the eclipse that just happened. What is the moon suggesting? What is it? Is it everybody's so fixated on some sort of imagination that we all like as a union of souls and spirits and energies project the moon to be there? And that's why some people can see different things in the sky. Why can children see different creatures? Why is it children can see? They say, oh, there's a little person there, or there's a fairy, or there's a thing. And they're like, no, we don't see that. But the child does. But there's all sorts of people that can see into different spaces and different things. So is the collective consciousness actually causing the moon to be whatever color it is? I mean, is the moon actually extracting information? And the reason they say the sun is actually illuminating the moon, saying, well, the sun gave rise to the division, meaning the sun in the sky. Well, okay, it can't always be this bright and wonderful, can it? Can it? Doesn't it have to be dark sometimes? Doesn't it have to? Yeah, it doesn't have to be. But we all came under this delusion, this disguise and confusion of like, what is the moon? Are we all projecting it there? And why is it red? What has been going on lately with the color red? And people's ideas of people have asked about the red and the blue shift, the red-blue shift, or what do these colors have to do with your different chakras, and all of these things. There's a lot going into it, but it really does seem as though it's a giant collective conscious projection, that it doesn't really exist at all, that we just put it up there. We just, with our mind, because our mind is that powerful. As we go back to the beginning of this video, you could make anything you want exist. But at the beginning, the children, what do they see? They see the little fairies. They see giants. They see all sorts of crazy things. They see, they understand. Isn't there a reason there's these strange stories about, the Jack and the Beanstalk? Aren't these weird stories that they've just found their way to navigate through time, from mouth to ear to mouth to ear, all the way down. It made it all the way. It had that much energy, that much truth to it. That maybe there's something behind those allegories, behind those symbols, and that the only thing about the moon is we've just somehow somebody, a magician, somebody with, I don't know. We could play with all of the deep archonic stories and forces and the Dracos, and we could tell a lot of stories about how that might have occurred. But what if we're all just going, no, the moon's red, and what does that have to do with what we're getting out of ourselves? And now, if I turn this into something, can we turn this into something a little bit more? Can we look at this? What does it look like inside the body? Can we make it somewhat scientific? Well, we can look at veins and arteries. We can look at the blue and the red blood inside of our bodies. And what does it take to extract or expel blood out of someone? And whether it's good or bad. What if we need to get bad blood out of us? How does that occur? And what have I always talked about in my older videos? I've taken down a lot of my videos because I wanted to kind of get right to the point for people so they can get a better understanding of what's going on internally in their body. And what happens with blood, and we talk about iron, we talk about Iron Man and iron-rich things, and we're talking about dense heavy metals that probably shouldn't be in us, that might actually be what's inside of us that's causing our blood to be red, which is causing, the concept of a red moon. We're projecting that out of our hyper aware, hyper-referential, holographic blood system that projects through our eyes, because biophotons not only come into our eyes but come out of them. And this is why certain people have a different kind of gaze, a different kind of like, whoa, that person is like powerful. Look at the depth of their eyes, or whatever it might be. And it might have something to do with the clarity, the clearness of their vision in their mind, the clarity of the waters in their brain, as well as the clarity of their blood system, their plasma. As you look through my more recent couple videos and talk about blood plasma. Well, what if this is just the extraction methods for really high-level magicians pulling pulling blood out of people's system, bad blood, and it's going to be projected as what the people see as the moon, so they get an idea. Somebody just said something crazy about like Burning Man, and somebody ran into the fire or something. I don't know, but like, what is that all about? It's like red fire, blood, right? And you burn bad blood off. And there's other ways of doing it, extracting blood through cupping, through bruising, through using your lymph system to get things out of you, through sweating, through what is fiery things. And this could be representative of what the moon is. And as people clear themselves out of literally just this, and again, this is the story, it's just inside of you. This isn't some crazy things going on outside of us. Yeah, it is. We can see, okay, there's hurricanes here, and there's we've been looking through this story for millennia, and there's some crazy things going on over there, and there's some poor people, there's some rich people, there's some parts of the world that are have dirty water, and like, what if that's all just inside of your body, and this is just a projection, and all people need to do really is clean up your own internal blood system. And all of a sudden that moon goes away, and all of a sudden the moon doesn't succubus all of the energy that the sun is creating. Because we know that the sun is actually the creative force of all the potential, all of everything that grows in the world is because of the sun. What does the moon do? The moon is if we look at it as just a boogeyman under the bed, a figment of our imaginations that's actually extracting money. That's where we get this fiat currency. Everybody says fiat currency means fake money. It doesn't really exist, right? And it's connected to the moon. The moon means money. Just like months don't exist, just like time doesn't exist. If we just got rid of the moon collectively in our consciousness, all of a sudden all of these systems go away, they vanish. But what if the connection to the physical, real, scientific world is it's literally just your blood? Clean your blood plasma. Clean all of that out. How do you extract your own blood? I'm not telling you to go get some needles and start pulling blood out of you. I mean, you can do cupping therapy. That's really easy to do. I mean, there's dry cupping, wet cupping. There's massage that helps. There's just regular sweat lodges. There's go take a hot bath, take a hot shower, take a cold shower. Do a little exercise, do some push-ups. Who knows? Eat different. Clean distilled water. Use urine. There's all sorts of products, even in the marketplace and environment right now where we sit using this currency. It's not about saying, oh, these companies are evil. It's about saying, hey, let's go find the things that are actually serving our betterment, our better, like as a person, as a being, as a creative unit, as a whatever we are, as a God, as a creator, individually and as collectively. And then we go, okay, let's get those things. Let's invest and participate in those type of things that will actually remove the whatever the matrix is of the moon. And I've spoken at length about this in earlier videos, and maybe I'll re-release them once people kind of get to this video about what the salt matrix is with the moon and what Saturn is. And Saturn is a timekeeper, and what the moon is. And I think really the red moon has to do with just a collective unconscious, subconscious that actually comes to the surface. And what comes to the surface? Like blood does when you start extracting it. If you get a bruise, if you do cupping, if you do things to remove, that's what happens. And you can do this, and see, this is the point through the whole thing, is it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever. You can extract that yourself. You can go through the process of saying, hey, you know what, whatever, man, this is my life, and I've had some good experiences and bad experiences. I give that crap up. I give that shit up, whatever it might be. And that could be a mental thing for you. That could be a mental exercise. It could be a physical exercise. You could literally exorcise the demons. You could extract your own fluidium from you in many ways. This is some ways it's extracted. Sometimes it's just processing it. This is like when you eat something, you process it and you crap the things out. More people need to take a shit. I mean, just to be, excuse the, but that's people have waste in them. They have big waistlines. They just need to get rid of the garbage that's in them. This is the importance of fasting and cleansing and water and clarity and all of these things that remove iron, because I think there's a big story about the iron-rich blood of where we are and what the Iron Age is and why iron rusts and what Iron Man is, and if you think of these people, they go, okay, well, there's a difference between the blue bloods and the red bloods. The blue bloods meaning the royals, and the red bloods. And now if you look into what the veins and the arteries do, well, some of it is moving good blood into the system, and some of it is moving bad blood in and around the system. One is a pump, one goes through the heart one way and one goes the other. So we're talking about good and bad blood. So the idea of royal blood versus the blue blood versus what red blood would be. I mean, that would be why it's iron rich that needs to be removed from the system. And then we can get to what the lymph is and removing things out, the back door and all this. But I really think that it seems to be what is a projection through the mental, the biophotons that we're projecting out as a whole entire species through our blood system that projects the moon there. So yeah, there you go. Have some crazy stuff. Seems to me, it feels to me, it tends to, hey, I don't know anything. I don't know anything at all. But it feels, it seems in that direction that maybe that's closer to what it is, because we certainly don't know what the moon is. As people are like, oh no, we landed on this. I'd be like, no, we didn't land on this. I'd be like, oh, we're in a flat Earth. No, we're in a sphere. No, we're the moon. I can see through it. And then some people are like, no, we definitely, then somebody like, no, it's flat, it's a disc. And then somebody like, no, it's coming through the outer shell that we're living underneath this dome. And then somebody like, well, yeah, it's a dome, but outside the dome there's water. And then somebody like, oh no, but this is actually, it's the great work, and it's an alchemical retort, and actually there's levels to it. And like, yeah, and then look, oh no, it's like water world, and no, it's like, and so it's all these different opinions on what it might be, but. And where we might live and what our consciousness is, but certainly we all have our set of like, hey, this is our grand experiment and experience, and we'd like it to be good. And how is that represented by the moon and the sun? Well, we all know the sun is good. The sun has always been good. The only people it's not good to is people that like put a bunch of garbage on their skin and don't just take it slowly. Take the sun in slowly. Get used to it. Get your melanation. Get it into your system. And another reason people can't take the sun in is because their blood is dirty. Because they're burning themselves. They have heavy metals. If you put sun onto a heavy metal, it's going to burn. Understand that. Think of a car and think of what happens to the paint. It's a heavy metal. It's made of steel. If you put steel in your blood or iron in your blood, you're going to burn yourself. Now, if you start to change that, you know it's not going to get hot? Soft, malleable metals. You know it's going to be transmutative or transformative in forces. Well, you know the plants grow because of it. And you have all these noble metals. They do something completely different. So now we should start to really consider, like, hey, I think this has something to do with the amount of iron we're putting in our diet. I think this has something to do with the way we cook our food. What are our pans made of? Why would we be using iron? Why would we be using those materials? I don't think we need that in our diet. It doesn't seem right. Why is it so heavy? Do I want to be carrying around a pot and pan made of iron? That's heavy. Huh. What if we started cooking with copper? What if we started drinking out of copper? What if our plates were made of silver? What if gold was part? Like, hey, I'm not saying we need any of the metals, but I think that's maybe a place where maybe people want to get to. But at the bare minimum, we need to stop using the heavy metals, and we need to look at the plant life and go, well, why are these things growing? Well, they're growing because of the sun, not because of the moon. The moon is not. The moon is a figment, and I think this is just a holographic projection of our blood system. And it's a sphere, and this gets back into spherocytus and erythrocytus, which is Earth, which looks like UFOs. It's disc-shaped blood cells, and I think this has to do with time travel and a lot of other things, which is, it's a fun business. But hey, hope you guys enjoyed this and made things a little more clear and less confusing for people, and maybe gave some ideas for everybody to chew on and play with. We'll talk soon. Have fun. Inspire the world. If you can't do that, at least inspire yourself.